So trying to do this for the first time, and what I'm trying to do here is I decided to solve a couple of Hackerrank problems, like solve as many problems as I can. And there are a lot of great YouTube channels that do these kind of things, but my aim is to be able to teach myself and really understand the concept. So let's go into the details of this problem. This is going to be the first coding problem solving exercise that we are going to be exploring. As many problems that I encounter as I make this efforts to improve in problem solving and critical thinking, I will try as much as possible to teach myself and record it, have it online to inspire as many as I can who want to do the same but can't. So let's go into the details. So when I saw this problem for the first time, I looked at this picture. Actually, this picture would even shed more light on what the problem is all about. So it's a programming challenge, and we're meant to solve it with C++. So let's dive in. So let's look at this picture first. So we have these diagrams, and what this actually depicts are arrays. And in C++, in programming generally, an array is an object that can hold data. Arrays can mean can function differently in different programming languages. For example, in C++, arrays and C, arrays would always have the same data type, whereas in other programming languages, you can have arrays of the same data type, but you can even have an array of varied data type. So C++ also behaves the same way. An array has the same data type. Like if you have numbers, every element of that array would be all numbers. If you have strings or whatsoever data type you have, they should all be the same. So please correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. So we have this array here indexed 0. So one thing we should also note that the first item in an array in programming generally is indexed 0. So we start counting from 0 and then increase by 1 as we progress. So we have a bigger array that has 2 arrays. And one of the things we should note is that in C++ we have this concept of vectors. So vectors is kind of like an array that you can resize. So it's not like a fixed array. So if you have the intentions of working on problems that will require you to shrink the array or increase the array, or you need like a dynamic kind of array, the go-to should be vectors. And I also think that they indicated it here in the problem. But let's dive into the problem. So we're asked to consider an n element array. That means n, we don't know, n can be anything. Excuse me. N can be 2, 3, n can be a million. So we have an n element array where each index I in the array contains a reference to an array of ki. We're going to explain this integers. So where the value of ki, so ki can start with, we definitely will start with k0, so k subscript 0. So where the value of ki varies from array to array. So see the explanation here. So for example, this is in this array of n, so let's say n is 2, the first array k0 has 3 elements, 1, 5, and 4. So, and that's what was explained here, where the value of, let's say, k0 varies from array to array. So the values here actually varies. The first array in n has length 3, then k1 has length 5, and each value of this k, let's say k0, the k1, first value is 1, 2, 8, so no value inside this array are actually the same. So where the value of ki varies from array to array. So given A, you must answer Q queries. So we're going to see that more. Each query is in the format ij, where I denotes the index of the index in array A and j denotes the index in the array located at a square braces I. For each query, find and print the value of j in the array located a square bracket I on the new line. So let's go down here so you see what they mean. So for example, a sample input can be 2, 2. So where 2 is actually, the first 2 is n, the second 2 is the query. And this query actually comes in the fourth line, which we would explain. So we have n equals 2, which means that in this vector, in this big resizable array, we are expected to populate it, or fill it up with 2 arrays. And from these 2 arrays, we're going to perform 2 queries. And the second line here is actually loading up the first array inside of n. So the first array is going to be of length or size 3, and the first array is going to contain 1, 5, and 4, just as we have here. The second array is going to be of size 5, and it's going to have 1, 2, 8, 9, and 3. Now, this fourth line is where the query happens. So the query, I'm going to say, I want to query the first array inside of this big vector of 2 arrays, and I want to print out the first item. So the first item here is 5. Right? No, the first item here is 1, but by index, 1 is going to be like 5. Then we perform a query on the second array. We say, okay, second array, which is like 1, and we want to pick the third item. So the third item was 0 by index. Actually, it's 9. So 0, 1, 2, 3 is 9, and that's why we have this value of 5 and 9. So that's what we have been tasked to do, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. So what I always do is I would bring up a new slate. I would bring up VS Code so we can solve the problem. So we've got VS Code here, and I would just copy this guy and dive here. So let me be sure that the recording is still working. Okay, great. Yeah, so when I solved the challenge, I didn't make use of this. I didn't make use of algorithms. I believe that there are better solutions, but the idea is just to, share my solutions, like solve my solutions. Share my solutions, not solve. What am I going to solve here? But it's like problem solving and critical thinking. So that's the idea. Let's do Ctrl J and let's dive in. So what did I do for the first time when I got the problem? Just a minute. So the first thing I did was, let's go down here. Let's make it smaller. This is actually the first time I'm doing this and I want to try it, and I hope it works. And I hope I'm able to go back to the video in case I have to solve this kind of problem again to refresh myself. So that's the idea. You can do the same too if you have this kind of interest. So the first thing I did was, since we were asked, we needed to have like n and q. So n is going to range from 1 to 10 to the 5. Q same. So that's like 100,000. So let's go. So the first thing I did was to, I always enjoy looking at the input and the output. So it's like, when I look at the input and the output, then I have to build the black box where, based on this input and output, then I can now use this structure of building or solving problems to build something that would solve as many problems as possible given any kind of input. So first thing I did was I had to get a way. So I declared like variable n and for 2, and I declared variable q for 2. Let's see what's the problem here. Okay, let me just do here. So we're going to just work here. I declared variable n and I did the same for q. So because these two variables would be received from the standard input, I needed to do, so I'm going to say, let's leave a comment, say receive, so I'm going to do cin, I'm going to receive n, and I'm going to receive q. Let me adjust the mic here. So let's just see out n and q. So I'm going to print now. So let's do g plus plus. Let's see. So it's expecting something. I'm going to say 2. We have 22. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it's not a problem. Maybe I should have done. So one thing I just figured out here was that everything worked, so it's not a problem. So maybe I should come here and say line. But this is just one way I solve problems, like in programming. I just try to print the values out to be sure that I am on track. So after doing that, the next problem that we need to address, let me clean this up, is that we need to find a way. How can we solve the problem of coming up with an array that would have 2 other arrays, or as many arrays as possible inside the array. So that means we need to design a vector. But while I was solving the problem, I initially tried solving it with, I have a vector, then I populate this vector with array. I also had this other option of having a vector that would accommodate other vectors, like a vector of vectors, and that's the approach I employed. So, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I look forward to many solutions. Like if you bump into this video trying to solve a similar challenge and you solve this in a very smart way, feel free to share. This is a journey that I am on of thinking critically and better. So let's Control Tab, Shift Tab. So I'm now going to create the vector of vectors. And how did I do that? So I have vector, and I did vector. So because the data type of this vector is going to be integers, so that's the reason for the int, and I called my vector r. So the next thing I did was, now I have to populate this vector with other vectors. So then I need a for loop. But how many times would this loop run? This loop is going to run as as many times as n. So I'm going to write a for loop as many times as n for int I equals 0, I is less than n plus I. Then what am I going to do now? I need to figure out a way to populate this array. Now my approach to solving this problem was to just write a simple function. I call this function populate vector. So I'm going to come here and kind of like initialize the function. So this function, it's going to return a vector. So that's my design rationale. So I'm going to call it populate vec. So it doesn't take anything as input. But then there are other design strategies. You can solve it very differently and have it work and produce the same solution. So I'm not going to write this function. The idea of the function is to receive inputs based on this sample input, receive input, populate this input, then push that input, not push, but create an array, create a vector, sorry about that, populate the vector and return that vector to the main function. Once that vector is returned to the main function, the main function will now push that vector into ARR. That's our vector of vectors. So we're going to come down here and we're going to also, we have vector, we're going to do int populate vec. So the first thing we're going to do is based on the sample inputs we have here. So the first number is the size. So we're going to declare an int. We're going to call it s. So this int is going to receive the it's going to be the size for every iteration. For every iteration in the loop, it's going to take like a new size, and then based on this size, populate the array. So based on this size, so the array is supposed to be of length of size 3. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to since we received this size from the standard input, so we're going to say okay this. So whatsoever value the user actually keys in gets stored as a size. So then what are we going to do? Based on this s, that's a size, that's actually what we're going to say the size of this vector. Let's say vector v, so we have like a vector inside here, but we want the size of this vector to be the value we received. So you got it? So now we have, so even if we have 3, 5, 10, whatsoever, we're going to have vectors. We're going to have different kind of varied sizes of vectors. Now the next thing we're going to do would be to populate this vector, and one way to do that, one way is to design a for loop. So we're going to design a simple for loop here, and the I has to be less than s, then I plus plus. Then we could just write c in, so v I. Okay, what this means is for this vector, so we have this vector for this length that we have imputed to be the size or the length of the vector, that's the number of values we want to receive into that vector. So if we say 3, we want to receive just 3 integers because the vector was declared to be a vector of integers. If we said 5, and vice versa. So when we're done with everything, we want to return. So we're going to return v. So we're going to test this out now. we would just come up here, and we're going to say vector int. So let's say the value that we want to receive, and for every iteration I want to call my populate vec. So populate vec is called for every iteration. Since we return a vector, this vector gets into val, and what do we do with this val? We push this value into this array that we have here. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to push, and the beautiful thing is that we have this function called pushback, and you can use it in vectors and array, and we're going to push value. So we're going to push value into array. So we're almost done. So based on the prompt, so we're kind of, let's see. So we need to solve this, but then let's see what we have here. Let's see what we have here. Okay, there's a problem here. We need to take this up. Great. That's special. Nice. Let's save and let's see. Great. So one thing I did was I wanted to just be sure that the size of the vector ARR, that's R, should be 2 or 3 depending on what we want to do. So what I did was I said, okay, let me just check the size and also check the value too. So I'm gonna just say size. So size of vector. So I'm saying ARR dot size. Great. Then and there. So one of the beautiful things before we run this code was I also tried to, when I populated the vectors, I wanted to be sure that those vectors actually were populated. So I ran a for loop here, which I made run after we test this out. So let's test this out and see. So I'm going to say 2, 2. So we have 3, 1, 5, 4, and we have 5, 1, 2, 8, 9, 3. So we actually, this means that we have 2 vectors inside R. So we have 2 vectors inside R, and we could also check like the size of these vectors that we have here. But since we already know the size because we gave that as an input, we know the size. But then just for debugging of error checking when you are solving these kind of challenges. So the next thing we're going to do now is, so we are very confident that we've been able to crack these 2 knots. So next is the query. So recall that we've just used n. Q, it's the guy that allows us to make use of the query. So think about it this way. So it's still based kind of like a for loop based solution. So we have Q is 2. So we're going to say like for Q, for the length of Q is 2. Let's say the first time, that's 1. We want to print out something. But then we can't just print out something because we need to, we need an input. So we're going to say for the first time, let's grab the first array or the first vector inside of this vector, and I want to see the first value. So that's the concept. Let's grab the first array, and I want to see the value of index 1. So I need to push this up. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to say for, you could use int I as much as you want. So then I will say I should be less than Q. Then I, that should be I. I have the mic here, so we're going to say C in, because we need to receive two values, but before we receive those values we need to declare them here. So I'm going to say int I and int j. Great. So I would come here and I would say I need a value for I and I also need a value for j. Now based off on these values, I need you to go into the vector, go into the first vector, that's the big one. So I'm now inside big vector, and inside the big vector give me access to, for example 0, the first one, and I just need the value indexed here, indexed at j. So that's the concept, and that's like the only line I need to write. Well, because I have two lines, I need these braces. So we're going to save it now. So let's run the function. Let's run the program again. So we're going to do 2, going to do 3, 1, 5, 4, 5, 1, 2, 8, 9, 3, size 2. So let's query. So 1, great, 5, and I'm gonna do 1, 3. I got 9. Great. I would have still, I think gotten the same if I had done like written it on the same. But we got the values as expected. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, everything is okay. Everything. We don't need this line now. So let's see, everything is okay. Yeah, everything. If we had added if we had done this end of line, I think it would just appear even nicer. So let's compile again. So we have 2, 2, and we have 3, 1, 5, 4, 5, 1, 2, 8, 9, 3. Oh, no problems. But okay, let's say 0, 1, 1, 3. Let's compile again. Control C. So I have 2, 2, and we have 3, 1, 5, 4. And we have 5, 1, 2, 8, 9, and 3. Then we have 0, 1. Great. 1 and 3. Super. So everything's working. Let's try with something else. Let's try with another value. So let's do 3, 3. And it mustn't. Let's do 3, 2. Let's do 3, 2. But then if we have 3 and 2, if we have 3 and no problem. Let's try it. So let's do 3 and 2. So for the first one, that means we're gonna have 3 vectors. So let's say 3, that's 1, 2, 3. Let's say 4, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say 5, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it's query time. So let's say I need the first guy and I need this guy. Great. So we have 2 special. So I'm going to say I need the that's the third array, but index 2, and let's say I want the first item. So we got 2. So, and that's exactly like what we have here. We have 5. This was the guy that we just had access to, and we said we wanted the first guy. So that's 2. So everything is working now. We will just grab the code. Yeah, I could just copy everything, and I'm going to paste it here. And let's run the code. Congratulations, Sean. And let's submit everything and run the test for. Oh, wrong answers. There's a problem somewhere. Sample test work. Let's see what we did wrong. I think returning 0. Okay, let's submit the code. This is very interesting. So let's see what we have here. Let's see what we have on the blackboard. I and J. It's saying that it's saying unused I was not used. I was not used somewhere. So I think this is where the problem lies. So let's just call this, I'm going to call this 1, and I'm going to call this 2. So let's receive 1 and 2. So I'm going to say 1 and 2. Let's go. Okay. Wow, it worked. So I think the problem was that, let's go back, like here, let's, okay, I know. Here, when we said I and J, when we had, let's go back a little bit and see what we had here. So the young man kind of like mistook this for the iteration variable. Yeah, so that was why. But it was fun anyway. So that's what we're going to be doing. Solving these problems and trying to present it to ourselves to really figure out if we even understood it in the first place. So I hope you had a wonderful time seeing me record myself. But the basic idea is to encourage someone out there who wants to go through problems or explain problems to friends and peers, and maybe you've never had the chance. You could just record yourself and figure out if you really understood the concept. That's the entire idea of the discrete scientists. Like there are a lot of things like we don't know. So, but then as we solve problems gradually, and we figure out like how to approach problems. But there are better ways to solve this problem. So please leave in the comments below or anywhere on better ways to solve the problems, just to help me improve and also to help each other. Have a wonderful time, and God bless you.